your sales champion coach and founder of Wise Sales Network. Today, I have a good friend of mine with me, Quincy Harden. He's joining me for our Therapy Thursday. As you guys know the story, when I began to write the book, No Back Doors for Me, I felt like I needed some therapy. And so I said, well, if I feel that way, of course, a lot of my corporate peers may be feeling that same way also. And I thought it'd just be a great time to bring everyone together, have some open and honest conversation and dialogue around diversity and inclusion and equity, and how we're going to navigate in the workspace, what's taken place in the past and what we can bring into the future with some good best practices. So Quincy, introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Quincy Harden, financial advisor with Edward Jones. That's what I do on my day job. During my part daytime job, at nighttime, I participate in Therapy Thursday, hanging out with Joyce here. But no, hey, thank you for having me. It's always fun. Whenever we get a chance to collaborate on things, I always have a great time.
Thanks, Quincy. So I mentioned in my post about Quincy joining me is that Quincy and I both enrolled and took the course that Cornell University offers on diversity and inclusion and received our diversity and inclusion certificates. So as I go through the journey of the book from chapter to chapter to chapter, I'm bringing on different guests to talk to me about that time in my life. So when the book chapters go, last week we kicked it off. I had my mom on. We talked a little bit about the overall story of my life. And so this week I brought Quincy in because it's about that final chapter of the book. Yeah. It's about my final year and a half, 2 years in corporate and some of the things I experienced and how they impacted me. And I didn't know it until, like I said, I was taking that class and had to do a homework assignment.
So you started digging in.
I thought I was good.
Yeah.
Right? I thought I was good.
Right.
But I wasn't as good as I wanted to be.
No, I understand. So, tell me a little bit about that. So, as you were going through the course, what were some of the things that really became apparent and relevant to you as you were working through the course?
I think more than anything, Quincy, just how much I had endured.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always so worried about taking care of other people,
right.
So I was, my job in corporate was a volunteer in
right.
diversity and inclusion and employee resource groups, and I'd always been active that way.
Sure.
And so I was always concerned, or if we're taking care of the people, are we taking care of our audience?
Yes.
Are we taking care of our young people that we brought into corporate and they needed to have people that looked like me,
sure.
right? And they needed to see me smile.
Right.
They needed to see me successful. They needed to see me navigate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was so busy trying to paint that picture and support them that I was brushing off a lot of things.
I appreciate that because a lot of times we're all about the face forward and how we receive them, how we're perceived in public, perceived to our peers, but also perceived to that general audience that we're trying to support. I too share that mission at Edward Jones. One of my jobs is to find diverse financial advisors in the Houston area to support one of the most diverse cities in the United States. And so I share that with Joyce. But during that time while you're supporting everybody else, what's happening with you?
I don't know. I think you're just in robotic mode. And, and there were some times when I had to, I had mentors myself, right? And people that I went to talk about some things. But at the end of the day, when I addressed those things, I was like, okay, they're saying I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. How do I get good enough?
Right.
What I need to do. You're in my office now. I tell people about my big white Post-its and my stickers so you see them.
They're everywhere. So, the whole grand design.
Right. So I pull those out and I go to work and I say, okay, what do I need to do to overcome this? Mm-hmm. What are these extra bullets? Mm-hmm. Right. And so, like I said in that quote, that when I begin to take the course.
Yes.
And one of the things, of course, is one of the first things I want you to take a look back at the organization.
Yes. Always look back at the previous organizations
look back.
That you've been a part of. And also the role that you play in the organization and also the people you interact with, not only your peers, but your organizational structure as well.
Yes.
So what were some of your reflections? We both shared our time at AT&T, right?
We did.
That was it. That was a fun time. The personal for you folks out there.
Yes.
We love y'all, kind of. No, I'm just playing.
I tell people all the time, one thing about AT&T was the training that we received.
Yes.
World class. And they called it the world-class training. And you didn't really know that you were really receiving world-class training until you left. Right. And you were in other organizations where they didn't have that world-class training. Absolutely. And so I'm grateful to AT&T for that, foundation, because I've been with other companies before, but that training that we got there was amazing. So, but when I was looking back at the organizations, and I was just thinking that I've been spending a lot of time taking care of other people and taking care of myself. And, you mentioned AT&T. I do tell the story about AT&T in my book, that there was one role that I had received there. Yes. I was recruited to do initially in that global market space. Right. And the gentleman that didn't get the job, a white male, ended up committing suicide. Yeah. When he didn't get the job. And I'm sure he had a lot of other things going on in his life that people didn't know about, they weren't aware of. I don't think people just have one incident that happened in their lives and they go to that stream. But people began to blame me and treat me poorly because I got the job. Right. And they were saying that I was the cause of his committing suicide.
But that happens in our world. What about things like unconscious bias? That was one of my biggest revelations. When you were looking back through your history at AT&T and other organizations, and even in this incident with the gentleman, could you see some unconscious bias at work?
Absolutely. And one thing about unconscious bias is I just want to put that out there. We all have them.
Yeah, we all.
No matter, no matter what race you are, who you are, and so I definitely saw some unconscious biases, right? I go back to a conversation I had a little over a year ago with a leader in the company I was with. And he said to me, I just think you're title chasing. Now, I always say I've been doing this for 20 years, but it's really been longer than 20 years. Yeah, 20 years is just what I'm willing to cop to, right? Publicly. Yeah. And probably a lot longer than maybe he had been doing it himself. Exactly. Right? And so he said this, he said, you're title chasing. And I'm thinking, so I want to make sure my facts are right before so I go onto LinkedIn really fast because I'm looking him up while I'm talking to him. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course, this was a white male. And I'm like, this is someone that's been in 3 roles in 4 years, 4 maybe going on 5 years, not tied quite, that was doing exactly what I was trying to do. Exactly. He was in the corporate space, the corporate sales space. He wanted to go into the supply chain, which is what I was trying to do, get on the supply chain side of the house and diversify, take my sales experience to help that department be better, then get experience in that department to come back to sales to help it to be better. Right. And so he had done those 3 things.
You're just doing the work.
Right.
And if the work has a title, it simply has a title.
It simply has a title.
But I think sometimes we can recognize other people's ambition, the ambitions that we have and the designs that we're trying to make on the work. We can see their ambitions. And so sometimes we have a tendency to call it out.
Right.
But what's wrong with you? He has ambition.
He has ambition.
What's the difference with you having ambition and you wanting to go and be and take? And here's the thing: we all have to take risks with our career. We have to take risks. We have to step out there. What's wrong with you taking those risks and being ambitious? And why would that be an issue? And when you look at his resume,
exactly, and so I said, this person has done exactly what I'm looking to do, the certain path, and he's done it even at a higher level, right? Sure. Because of so he's done that at a higher level, but now you're coming back and you're ridiculing me, and you're trying to make me feel as if I'm not worthy to do just that. And so I had to back him up just a little bit and say, look, what do you know about me? Because you are a new leader for me, so allow me to reintroduce myself, as Jay-Z says. And so I said, Joyce Johnson, and then I'm like, well, here's the work that I've done in my life and in my career. Right. I've been in sales. I had a life before coming to this organization, and and I think sometimes I may look a little younger than what I am, so people don't. It may be that Galveston
Maybe,
water.
yeah.
Yeah, we both grew up in
Yeah, we
Galveston,
both grew up in
Texas, by the way. So I said, well, maybe because, I don't know. You tend to start making excuses for people, because they've made you feel so uncomfortable. And so you're thinking like, why? But I'm like, hey, why can't I do this? Here's my experience. Here's where I've been. And then when I talked to him and I told him that, he was like, oh,
Yeah.
like he had an aha
Yeah.
moment. But he never thought before picking up the phone with me that he should look, really understand someone who was a report to him, what their background was, what their experience was, where, my education was, and training, and all the things that I had accomplished, because I was a really, what we call in diversity inclusion, all I know, an engaged employee.
Very much.
Right?
There's a huge
Engaged
in the work. It's a totally different thing. You think, so to me, that's an example of a little bit of unconscious bias, because in his mind, he's making a flash judgment and not really going and looking at your data and understanding who you are. For me, in the past, when I've dealt with people who have, questioned my either abilities or my ambitions, I simply move past them. I need to understand who you are, what you are, and kind of figure out how you work. And either I'm moving through you or around you, but either way,
we're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get it done. We're gonna figure it out.
Right.
And it's not even personal. It's just, it's at this point kind of a mode of operation. Did you, as you work through the corporate environment, what are some other stories where you felt like you had to deal with either things that were based upon gender bias or things based upon racial bias, or when we talk about, and to me, diversity, and I want to say this to the audience, diversity is more than race and gender. Diversity has a lot to do with your background, diversity of culture, different perspectives, where you grew up geographically, all of that generational perspective, all of that lends to creating a diverse work environment. And in that diverse work environment, if we have those different inputs, number one, most importantly, we avoid groupthink. Have you been in organizations? Well, I mean, you and I have actually sat in meetings where there's been some group things. It's like these people don't see any other way besides the way things have always been done.
Absolutely. And that's the reason diversity is so important, Quincy. That's the reason it's so important to have so many different people and different ages and cultures and background in the room together and at the table together, so that you can think differently. When I'm talking to college students about owning their diversity, my entire presentation is to help them understand how diverse they are, and then so they can begin to understand how diverse others are. And what I share with them at the end of that presentation, if you grasp that, if you get that, then you can address the with them, what's in it for me, because everyone wants to know what's in it for them.
Right.
So the only way for you to put together a true plan that's going to benefit everyone and allow everyone to engage and work for the success of the organization, as if you create a plan for everyone. And you have to know how diverse you are and understand the diversity of others and their cultural and background and what have you.
Understanding what you bring to the table, understanding the organization, how your talents, how everything that you bring to the table really fits.
Exactly.
Any other reflections for the class? Anything that really drew you out? Any aha moments where you just like, wow, I didn't.
One of the things they asked about, did you ever have to do anything to change yourself, right?
Yes.
Or to do something, things that you had to do to really fit in, whether they were mal or aggressive or what have you.
Sure.
And, and so today I'm sitting here and I have my hair in twist braids, right? And I remember having some issues with my hair some years ago, and my hair was falling out. I was actually having some stress problems in my hair and everything.
Sure.
And so I cut my hair off. I just, I called my aunt in tears. I grew up in a hair salon because my aunt owned a hair salon. So I called my aunt and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mabel, all of my hair is falling out. And what am I going to do? And she said, come here now. So I get in my car, I drive to Galveston. She says, just hair. And she cuts all my hair off.
Clean sweep.
She cuts all of my hair off. And I'm just thinking, what am I going to do when and so I it was not much I can do, but try to address my hair issues and
Mhm.
try to find some things, figure out what's going on with my body and everything else.
Right.
But people were treating me different. I can tell the difference of when I walked in a room
Right. So,
when about my hair.
do you think we have certain biases as far as females that we expect them to have the long hair, have those traditional norms in place, and then if we don't see that, then we go to A and B alternative thoughts about that person?
I do. And because one thing happened is finally, and I was self-conscious about it as well. And some people say, oh, you just got to own it. You got to own the look. It's your imagination. Nope, it was not my imagination. Because I said, well, let me go ahead, and I didn't want to have braids in corporate, but I said, let me go ahead. There's these braids. You can braid the first couple of pieces of hair, and then you can just have hair down
it'll come down eventually.
So I did that. And then I go in to see this customer, Bill. I remember this. And I'm sitting there with him, and he says, oh, you finally went and bought you some hair.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I was like, would you like some? Because they have some for you too, because he was a bald-headed, white male. And he just, he and I had so much tension in our communication and things. He just fell out laughing. And from there, the ice is broken.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is you never know what's going to do it.
It's true.
But I was like, yeah, because I could have gotten all in my pants about it or whatever. I was like, yeah. I was like, you want some too? Like, you can go.
Yeah, you do it too without
yeah, you can go get you some hair.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then I write a piece in my book where I say, good morning.
Right.
I hope this note finds you well.
Mm-hmm.
Make it a great day.
Yeah.
And red lipstick.
Red lipstick. Everybody red lipstick, George?
My red lipstick.
Oh, okay.
So those are things that I had to implement in corporate, because the minute I didn't say good morning or make it a great day, someone said I was being too direct and too forceful in my communication.
I do think it's important. This is a little bit off topic, but this is appropriate
for
Therapy Thursday. As it is, how do we control our own self-talk? Okay. A lot of times when we're sitting with ourselves, our mind is talking to us, and people out there that are watching, ask yourself, who's in there talking to you about what's going on with you? How do we control and how do we rewrite our own self-talk? Because I think that's really important, because you have to consciously be aware of what's being said in your own mind, and making sure if that's not the right message for you, that you're rewriting that message on a daily basis. You got to rewrite it. There's no way around it.
And I know that I've seen some really powerhouse speakers in my career. I've always gone to conferences and things like that. And, some of them say, you have to have your morning affirmations.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I think it's that. I think sometimes it's doing what I do. I'm a journalist by heart, since I was a young girl. You listened last week, you heard my mom say that. And so I write things. Mm-hmm. I have to write them out. I have to dissect them. I have to put them in an outline. I have to add a little research to it. Mm-hmm. You'll be surprised. I'll research, and it's so much fun now. It's on a computer, easy. But yeah.
You have no library anymore?
I don't have no library anymore.
No photocopies? What about microfiche? Some people what microfiche is. Like you scrolling through this stuff.
No, I said typewriter to my niece, and she's like, what's that? I was like, okay. But getting back on track here, it's just, you have to redirect your thoughts, because sometimes, and I tell people in my book, I want you to understand what you're experiencing, it's real, right? I don't want to shove it under the rug or whatever, but also we do have to own our own paths. We do have to figure out a way to maneuver or navigate, and we do have to control what's in our own mind.
In your talk track, that talk track is very important, because that's
very important space.
That talk track unconsciously drives decisions in your personal life. It tells you what your limitations are. Mm-hmm. It tells you what you can do. It tells you what you can't do. Should I try this? No, I definitely can't try that. Should I speak up in front of these people? Yes, you should speak up. If you have a good idea, you should speak up. Ideas are how we distinguish ourselves. I mean, that's the separator. In this world. I mean, do you agree with that perspective?
I agree with that. And whether people want to hear it or not, give it to them.
You gotta let it fly.
Just gotta let it fly.
You gotta let it
right?
go. Mm-hmm.
Whether people really want to hear it or not, and know that you add value, right? So, but you have, I read books, right? Sure. I listen to podcasts. I listen to books now. because I'm tired of typing. So I do a lot of audiobooks, but I love filling books. So I still buy books.
Sure.
You see, I got
yeah.
there.
Plenty of books over
Plenty
here.
of books right there. Those are the newer books that I've ordered. And but you know, do what you need to do to fill your soul, as I say. But then, like I said, even the red lipstick was part of my corporate branding.
But that's also a part of retraining. It's re-engineering your self-talk.
It's re-engineering
yourself to make yourself, I've heard, as you walk through the door and as you go into the morning, you're saying, "Hey, make it a great day." Which is your tagline?
That's my tagline.
I mean, every time all right, Quincy, make it a great day. I was like, it's already a great day for me.
But you know, you have to say that because
you do.
You know, and I say that to my nieces and the young people because it's going to be what you make it. In most cases, some people may come in and try to screw it up for you, but once you dismiss them, don't take it to the next conversation. Don't take it to the next thing. You have to make a decision every day to make it a great day.
Yeah, and also I would say I've always known you as a mentor to others, and I appreciate that about you. And remembering that the consistency of message to the people that you're mentoring, whether it is family, whether it's friends, or whether it's people in your corporate environment, or the clients that you work with right now and your college students, make it a great day is a very important tagline because that's constantly in the mind when people speak to you and they associate with you. One of the things for me, my mom, every time there was a gift, it doesn't matter what it was. If there was a gift of something, that was a gift of money.
Yeah.
She wrote, "Spend money wisely," 3 exclamation points, and a smiley face.
Spend money wisely.
I'm a financial advisor now. I'm a financial advisor now. And all I can think of every time is spend, like when I'm getting ready to make a purchase that I'm not supposed to make. Diane, you're in my head. Spend money wisely, but also when I'm working and trying to serve my clients and make sure that they understand what's the best moves to make, especially whether it's from the tax considerations of different moves. It's always about, are we doing the wisest thing? And making sure that all of our alternatives are there so that way we can make the best decision. But yeah, no, I completely understand. So I'm all about messaging and making sure that message is consistent. And I think you do a great job of that consistent.
Thank you. And I try to, because, I can remember one time a young man calling me and he was having some challenges, whatever, and I just wasn't in the best space. And so after I was like, well, I don't remember what I said to him, but then I remember hanging up and calling him back later and saying, you know what? I don't know who that person was you talked to earlier. Let's reset. If you allow me to reset, let's rethink this out. And because I don't, I want you to approach this the right way for your future success. So that is important. And, and one other thing I want to talk about was microaggressions, right? So I'm watching TMX yesterday, and I had to tweet.
For the uninformed, TMX is what?
The Mile Zone. It's a TV show with this guy Harvey Levin, and it's like a magazine. Okay. Yeah, so you get the magazines up in the stores, but it's magazine TV, right? And the Mile Zone, I think is what it's called, is this area of LA where Hollywood and all the stars hang out at. So this guy, he's an attorney, and it always ends like, I'm a lawyer, what have you. It's like trash TV or talk show TV, whatever, but they're really good and really informative.
Sure.
So he always, after he interviews Black people, he always feels that he needs to say, oh, they're really smart, or they're really intelligent. Oh, or that person has a good heart. I like him. As if he has to validate who they are. So I had to tweet Harvey yesterday and say, Harvey, we don't need your validation as people of color to know that we are articulate, well-spoken, intelligent, what have you. We get it. We know that, because if we weren't, we wouldn't be on your show.
I agree. And it's funny, like I've seen both sides, and I do have a follow-up question on that.
Yes.
But to me, I've seen both sides. So for instance, when you watch Venus and Serena Williams play tennis.
Yes.
There's always they talk about the physique, they talk about the strength, they talk in for a while you didn't hear about how brilliantly they were playing certain things. But coverage of all, and you would hear about how smart and
Right.
calculated that Serena is on and so I appreciate that perspective. But
And as a businesswoman, because
oh
Venus was
yeah,
on, I did a conference, American Express had a conference this week.
mm-hmm.
And they had about they had Shaq talk about businesses and business ownership and things, and they
Sure.
had Venus.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, we love our entrepreneurs. Let me ask you a follow-up question.
Yes.
And it just came to me as we were sitting here. We're both from Galveston.
Yes.
And Galveston, you know, in the Houston area, Texas area, you always look at Galveston as being different than what we know it to be. Galveston is very, very diverse. We grew up in a very diverse place. I mean, I would say 30% white, 30% Hispanic, like 30% black, and then because we're a seaport, we had in an oil town, we had that little mix of other.
Yes.
How do you think that informs your ability to walk? Because you and I have been in corporate environments together, and as we talk about the classic Cornell, you start to think about what's my experience as an African American in corporate America,
right,
which is very different. I don't care. I'm gonna talk to anybody, and I'll talk to you in the same tone. My tone doesn't change depending on who I'm talking to because I grew up. And a very important guy, Mr. Scott, told me you speak to the king and the pauper in the same tone.
The same tone. That's what we learned.
You know that, Mr. Scott,
that's
right?
what we learned growing up.
Rest in peace, Dad. But how is growing up in that diverse environment and having to navigate daily through a diverse environment really informed your professional career, but also how's it helped you be a successful entrepreneur?
You know, just what you said, because I'm comfortable talking to anyone, right? I live right out downtown Houston, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to.
Very nice over here, too. Yeah.
Stop it.
All right,
I go to the corner store and things like that, and I'm talking and engaging with homeless people and whoever, and, you know, just having conversation with them. But I'm also very comfortable talking to other people. And it's one thing I always talk with my godson, Brian. When you meet a man, you look him in his eyes and you shake his hand and you introduce yourself. Right. And you treat him as a man, no matter where he's seated.
Right.
You know, if he's in a White House or a crack house, whatever, you know,
it don't matter.
Dress in the same way. So I think that it gave me a comfort of talking to people, right? And it gave me that comfort, but it also it left me a little naive because we are in Texas.
Yes.
And I have spent most of my career in Texas. And so, you know, as I was reading last night, watching the cast with Cornell with Isabel Wickerson, I believe her name was talking about it. And we are where the Jim Crow laws was a little bit longer, maybe than they were in some other areas.
Sure.
And so when I left Galveston, going to college, I was still protected because I went to an HBCU.
Yes.
But when I left college, I felt a little naive to how people were going to receive me.
Yes.
And in my book, that chapter is titled Slapped by Privilege.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I realized, or no, maybe it's the reminder that I'm Black. It was a reminder that I was reminded that I was Black.
I can't remind us that, And you know, no, continue.
No, but I was reminded that I was Black when I left college because, so I think growing up in Galveston, you know, as my mom was on last week, she said how she's a nurse. My mom, actually, I think it's documented now, she was the first African American nurse to work in the hospital there, and in that emergency room at the hospital that wasn't a all-colored hospital.
Sure.
And so we were around all those people. We were around those doctors and things. They did invite us to their boat rides and things of that nature. So it left me a little naive about how people were going to receive me.
I agree.
When I went into other spaces outside of Galveston, Texas.
I agree. I was very naive as well. Like, I went away to school. I was in Galveston, but I went away to Charleston State to play football, which is in Central Texas. So you basically take an hour and a half north of Waco and an hour and a half southwest of Fort Worth, and you end up in those sticks out there in Central Texas. You know, and I'm walking through the grocery store, and people are following me, and I'm just like, this is an odd experience. I've never had this experience growing up in Texas, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, this must be what it's like.
I worked that.
You know, I mean, Black man walking around the Piggly Wiggly in Comanche, Texas. So, you know, you're like, okay, you see it. But, you know, regardless, you see it, you identify it, and then you find ways to work through it. You find ways to bridge the gap. One of the ways, so when I saw I'm like, hey, come walk with me and help me.
Yes.
And then that way, I got a chance to talk and build a relationship. And then when I walk in there, people are like, oh, there's that guy. And that's the thing. Recognition, I think recognition is one thing, recognition and then a path to solving whatever bias or unconscious issue that you have, and then building the relationship. I think it's very important that if you build a relationship, you can
Yeah.
solve a lot of things.
And I build giving relationships at restaurants, at the HEB, everywhere, in my neighborhood.
Yeah, everywhere.
And that's because I did grow up in that small town environment. So
Right.
even when I move in a big city, I want to move into a cozy little
Yeah.
neighborhood. And my sister does it, and my brother does it too.
Mhm.
Right? We are in our own little space in a big city, and we don't really move outside that
You know,
space.
like
Close to one
the,
another.
even the La Familia feel.
Yes.
Having that close.
Well, time has gone by, Quincy.
It has.
This has been half an hour Therapy Thursday, and we are like
talking too much Thursday therapy.
And so,
let me ask you this.
Yes.
You're a great entrepreneur. You're an accomplished author. So many good things that are there. What are the things, and especially 2020 is so crazy, such a crazy year, right?
It is.
So with that, going what's next for Joyce Johnson as we take the positives out of Therapy Thursday?
The pause out there, well, I have the book. I'm writing a book, and I'm hoping that everyone's going along this journey with me. The book, No Back Doors for Me. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking to women and people, and I'm sharing my experiences, but I'm also sharing my experiences and helping and of what I dealt with, but then also how I overcame those things.
Right.
And how I strategized in myself and how I, leaned on mentors and people in my life to overcome, because I want to teach people that piece of it as well, right? I just don't want to leave you stuck. Mm-hmm. And so I have the book, and then of course Y Sales Network.
Yes.
Platform that we built, that we're in the Smithson building. It's still going, but it's been an amazing journey.
Yes.
And strengthening that as long as continuing my work with college students.
And your work with college students is very important. Why do you focus on that particular demographic to be so helpful and grow with? Because it's awesome work.
Because I had an intern. I think my first intern, maybe it's been well over 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. And I remember sitting having a conversation with them, and it's two ladies, and understanding that they were just as afraid as I was graduating from college. Right. Understanding that they had some of the same questions and challenges that I had when I was leaving college, and also understanding that for them that they didn't have that support and direction. Sure. And so I immediately wanted to help them to be better. Mm-hmm. When I wrote my first book, one of them put a quote on LinkedIn. She said, "That's right, because Joyce told us everything always starts with a sale."
Yeah, always. You have to sell yourself.
Right.
Prospective employer, right?
And so they were terrified, right?
I was saying, weren't you terrified?
I can't say I was terrified.
I guess I'm an adult now. I gotta go out here and make it happen.
I was already adulting through college, right? I was already working, had that apartment and things like that. And so I wasn't terrified, but I was a little naive about how things were going to do it. And I was still willing to do the work and accomplish the things.
Yes.
And then I realized what the obstacles were. So, okay, well, at least I know what they are. So let's keep it moving, because I need to do what I want to do and accomplish what I want to accomplish, right? But I still make it happen. Right. So, but that's why. And I realized that some colleges do it better than others, but they don't have that piece that tells them that now you're graduating, here's what you do to go into corporate. And that's why I have my book, Top 10 Sales Tips for College Grads, because we don't want you just to show up with your Social Security card and ID. Right. You need to show up with a plan. We've told you what the job is going to be about. Right. We told you what we expect, and you need to go in with a plan. And I want to help them develop that plan.
You're filling that gap.
I want to fill in that gap. And it's bigger in some places than others. Sure. And especially for children of color, I mentor all kids, but that gap is, it's there. And I want to just fill that gap and give them that coziness, and they all call me Aunt Joyce. And so, Auntie Joyce is my favorite role in life.
Hey, Ray, if you're out there, we're hanging out on Aunt Joyce.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, one final question for you, and we're what, 5 minutes over. Okay, bear with us. This is Thursday therapy,
And we having
right?
fun. So
And
whenever
we're
we get
having a great
together,
time.
yeah, it's gonna be
And
a little
I
crazy.
know Monica, my team's probably gonna kick us off in any minute, close us out. But Quincy, you're a father.
Yeah, I am. Father.
You're a great dad.
Thank you. I appreciate
You
that.
really are. I've sent you notes, I think, on Daddy Day or whatever. And
Right.
said that I'm really proud of you. And, and
Yeah.
I've been with you and your boys, and I just love it.
Yeah.
I love the synergy there. So with all of this that's taking place today, around racial divide and togetherness and things of that nature, what is it you're saying to your boys?
For me, number one of the most beautiful things that's happened with me is that my oldest boy is now able to vote. So for me, I didn't care how we vote. We had discussions about the topics and the items, but the most important thing was we went to vote together. So I think participating in our democracy is good. I hope we inherit a democracy that is here and that is fair and reasonable. And the only thing I really want for my children is equality of opportunity. Okay. Baseline. If you, I mean, especially you give me equal opportunity to execute, I'm gonna work until I get it done. Exactly. And so
Yes.
For my boys, equality of opportunity in a safe, fair democracy where they're not threatened, and that they're able to execute and live their best lives. I mean, that's what's important to me. And everything else really take care of themselves. And I tell them, your work ethic will determine your attitude, and your work ethic will determine your altitude. And so it's what you bring to the table daily. It's a daily decision that you got to wake up and when you want to be your best out there and execute.
Absolutely. And I can say the same, for my nieces, right? And I tell you, boy, I pray for them daily that, that good people put in their lives and good opportunities are there, that they have access to things. The reason I work like I do and I go as hard as I do is so that I can provide them access to things and even out that playing field. So that's perfectly said. Equality of opportunity, having access that's the ask.
Yeah, and there were people who were smarter than you and I. We lived amongst people who were smarter than you and I, but maybe didn't have the access to the opportunity. We don't want equality of outcome. I want to determine my own outcome.
I'll determine outcome.
You give me equality of opportunity, and I'll compete you every day.
All day long.
All day long, and at night twice on Sunday. That's the person out there twice on Sunday. You know what I'm talking about.
And that's the word from Houston, Texas, coming in directly from Galveston, Texas. Wow. So a little island in the Gulf. So, but thank you guys. Thanks for joining Quincy and I today. Again, the book, No Back Doors for Me, talks about my corporate journey. It talks about some of the things that I experienced as an African-American woman, and as a woman, walking around with my suits and my pink hard hats and steel toe shoes. And, just some of the things that took place and how I want to help people. I want to help people heal from it. And I want to help you with tools to get pushed through and still become the best you and live your best life. Don't let anyone take that from you. Don't let anyone take your dreams from you. You got to just still work at them. With that said, I am Joyce Johnson, author, speaker, sales champion, coach, and founder of Wise Sales Network. Make it a great day.